we don't want to always talk about doom and gloom, and we don't. We do need to talk about the subject of the rising costs, which is something we've touched on before, but now it's even more relevant with the minimum wage rising shortly. And obviously the impact that's going to have, we know the impact it's going to have on our clients, so on obviously many other owners out there. And how are we going to tackle it? How are we going to approach it? What do we need to start doing as a business really in order to, because, you know, as we know, we can't just always put all the prices up to reflect it. Of course, we need to think about price increases and so on, but what else is it that we need to do in order to try and support that rising cost?
I mean, look, it's been a big topic, isn't it, last year about the rise of cost of everything. And then obviously suddenly in the UK, Ireland, we've got the minimum wage going up, which really is affecting some businesses. Yesterday I did a business audit and I was talking to one of the members, well, you know, it's increasing their wage bill by £15,000 or, you know, €18,000. It's for the year, it's kind of substantial. It's not really a small one. Yeah. So I think it's a matter of, yes, we don't want to be doom and gloom, and we have to go back to strategy mode, which is what we keep working on with members. And the strategy has got to be that you cannot afford to have a staff member that's underperforming anymore. That's a little bit like what happened after the pandemic. You saw smaller teams, but more efficient team, more occupied, you know, really motivated, and focusing on their occupancy and focusing on them being productive. It's getting to the stage now that if someone is not a revenue driver, what is it that they're doing? Is it beneficial? Because otherwise it's an extra cost. And when we did this analyse with one of the member, really she has one person part-time, but she's very good, great, and I love that. It felt that she didn't really have a role. So it felt like she's just plodding along, not really having clients, and it's a £700 cost on a monthly basis, which doesn't seem that much, but at the moment it all adds up.
Yeah, the thing is, and we're not just, I think there's two elements, isn't there? There's an element of, do you have a member of staff that is underperforming, that is, say, a therapist or a stylist that's constantly on the floor? Are they 60% occupied or whatever it may be, or just underperforming in certain areas? Or do you have a non-revenue driver, which is what do we have the flitter about the apprentice maybe, who's more than likely going to be a non-revenue driver unless they're doing a few bits and pieces, or a receptionist. Yeah. And we all know how I feel about receptionists. For me, that's a completely almost different subject, but yeah, so there's a few areas, and that's when actually with a lot of people we're speaking about the staff performance, because say you've got a team of 10 and they're all 60% occupied, then actually do we need that bigger team? And I think it's really difficult at the moment because, well, there's so much to talk about to do with this, but I think it's difficult because we've struggled so long with recruitment that it's difficult to let people go because you're waiting for them to get busy, but we need to be looking at the pattern with the person and what is it they're doing and what can you do to push that forward.
So it goes back to strategy, because also a lot of members that we've been talking to, or business audits that we've been doing this year so far, has actually been about the cost. Oh my God, it's going up. Oh my God, April, and I need to put a price increase on my prices. And like you said, you can't necessarily do a 10% price increase across the board, depending on where you are, etc. But there's got to be an element of, can we start focusing on the revenue driving rather than the cost? If you know the cost, if you understand what's coming up, you can actually manage that cost because you've kind of worked on the budget, you understand where you're at, and you really know your numbers inside out. So you can overcome that if your focus has to be on, are we fully occupied? Are we focusing on the new clients? What's the marketing strategy? Because one of the clients we were talking to yesterday, it's all this fear, but when you look at the marketing, it's sporadic. hardly talking about to new clients. We don't even know who we're talking to because there's so many services. It's a little bit overwhelming.
I think actually that's what we were saying the other day as well, is about consistency.
Yeah.
In everything you're doing at the moment. I think it's more relevant now than it's ever been before for you to be consistent as the owner, as the manager. That's with the team, that's with every message you're sending out, in-house, out-house.
Yeah.
Everything needs to be that bit more strategic as such. But the consistency needs to be there with the marketing, with the message, with the messages that you're putting out, with the journey, with absolutely everything. So there's every single element of the business I feel needs to be ultra analysed.
Yes.
At this moment in time, if you haven't already done it, because it's just I think it is definitely the minimum wage. There's other costs, of course, as well, but the minimum wage is going to be... Because actually, funny enough, when we were chatting about it, I actually hadn't sat down and really looked at it in detail yet, as to the effect that has on the bottom line for the owner.
Well, I think it's more than a minimum wage, isn't it? Because when you've got a team member that's been with you for over, let's say, 5 years, and she's not far off, we're seeing that outside of the big cities, really, mainly. She's not far off the minimum wage, and you're going to have a younger staff member who's going to come up to the minimum wage, and you're like, well, hold on a minute, I've been here 3 years. So you then have to increase that person's salary, otherwise you kind of have a little bit of disgruntled team. So you're not just looking at the minimum wage, you're also looking at what about the others? Is it aligning with what I've got? But again, it goes back to the analysis of what you need. To me, we cannot afford an underperformer in the team anymore. We cannot afford to not know what's going on in the team structure, who does what, when, how. We cannot afford to keep kind of dragging our feet on certain things. It feels this year that we've got to be even a little bit more aggressive.
Yes. I think that's
quite a
right
dramatic word.
No, I think it's a good word actually. In not aggressive in the way we deal with things, but aggressive in our thinking, aggressive in our strategy. I think that's the right way of thinking about it. Because I think what we do as owners is we sit on our laurels a little bit, not all the time. But I'm also talking from my experience as well. Because change is, you're fearful, you fear change, and you don't necessarily want change, but it needs to happen. And it is that age-old thing of not wanting to rock the boat if it all seems okay. And when you start, if you take, which again, not everybody we meet, but quite a few people that we meet, they're not on top of the teams. The teams kind of, if they're established, they run themselves, they're doing their own thing, everyone's happy and it's all fine, but they're underperforming, then it's kind of taking that relationship from, and how are you now going to start saying, right, okay, look team, this is what we need to do, this is what you need to achieve, and so on.
I was talking to someone yesterday who was saying, the top therapist who normally does skin, laser, etc., she's mainly done nails in December because that was a demand, nails and waxing. So suddenly you've got a top therapist who can't generate as much revenue because she's stuck doing nails. To me, that was a complete lack of strategy for the year ahead. We need to start thinking already for her to develop her on how she's going to make sure she's not doing nails and waxing in December, to bring in more money, to make sure she gets everything that's needed. But we can't. Well,
do you know what, it's probably another conversation, but I remember when I first launched a skin clinic, when I wanted to establish that clinic, and not obviously we still wanted to keep the beauty side, the nails, the lashes and so on, but obviously I recognised that the girls were getting booked up all the time with nails, lashes, brows, and then when we wanted to fit skin in we couldn't, so I was pre-blocking prior, which sounds a little bit like what they need to do for December, so they're blocking certain either half days or hours, whatever it is, so that they know that's just for skin. Because then the nails and lashes, they will always book way in advance.
You'll always have that.
You're always going to have it. And then you agree with yourself off a certain time, right, if it hasn't booked with 3 days prior, you let it go to...
But that's why it's gone are the days where you just can like, oh, hopefully we're going to get more nails and we're going to do a bit of a post on marketing and it's going to be okay. We're going to get more skin, or we're going to get more colours, or we're going to get the apprentice, you know, busier with certain treatments. There's got to be a strategy behind the rise of those costs, really. What do we do to drive that revenue? Because the time is now, with beginning of the year, we've got to really push it, really. Thank you for joining us. We really enjoy sharing our thoughts on various topics. If you have a burning question, simply comment below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button to keep up to date with each new episode.